What made
But
you decide to write about your experiences, Chris?
um, so um, it's kind of a complicated story. Katie, or Ava in the book, um, I her and I started dating about 3 or so months after I got out of uh McLean, which was one. It was my intensive outpatient treatment program after to start trying to kickstart my healing journey. But thanks to my girl Shadow, um, uh, I got to meet Katie. I wasn't the easiest person to love because I just was getting out of an abusive marriage, and I was starting to deprogram myself from all the psychological abuse of what I went through. That, you know, for for those of you that may not know, that the viewers, uh, after I got diagnosed with autism, my then wife started telling me I was, too difficult to love and a burden, and I should, the world would be better off without me. And um, so, uh, because of that, and after hearing that for 3 years straight, um, I entered this relationship with Katie a little bit guarded. I was not, I was deeply suspicious. I didn't have the best self esteem. Uh, and then when she got sick, um, I just started writing for her at the hospital, and so that she could see the full context, understand the full context of what I went through and why I was the way I was with her. Um, and she didn't make it, but my sister encouraged me to finish the book and turn it into something that could actually help people. So that's why I wrote it. It didn't turn out. I didn't set out to write a book. It evolved to that.
Yeah,
So
I think the book is a real gift to the world, and um, I love the way you end it with the doors open, and because I really see you as somebody who's trying to help other people who are going through similar things, and it's what really has drawn me to your writing.
yeah, I mean, um, I had to be very careful with this because I didn't want to turn it into um, a what do you call it? A judicial process of putting out there like, this is what my ex-wife did to me, and that that's annoying and that's vindictive. And um, I what I did see was a real opportunity for uh, there are especially men who don't often. Um, I'm going to put it this way: it's not very common to hear men getting abused. Um, and it's more, and I hate to put it this way, it's more socially acceptable for women to get abused, and I mean, you hear about it more, women getting abused. But so that was one angle I wanted to take of like, hey, like, if you're a man and you're getting abused, that's okay. Like, talk about it and work through it. And um, there's also some of us that are neurodivergent that uh, didn't figure things out and until later, and like, I'm still figuring it out, and this is what the journey looks like. Um, and the other thing too, it's like, uh, you're in the medical field, or you were in the medical field until recently, and like so you kind of, I think, have a understanding of how our medical system works, and the mental health system is actually really bad. And it's the whole, like, suicidal ideation and mental health struggles is so stigmatized, and I wanted to bring a voice to that, like, we're all struggling, and it's okay to talk about it. Um, and so that's that's the angle I wanted to take, to just give a voice to others that are struggling to find their own. But I think that's what you're doing too when you're writing, right, Bill or William? What do you prefer?
Bill.
William,
I go by
Bill.
Bill. Yeah. William is sort of my other name. But yeah, that's kind of where my writing is coming from too, is that place. I started writing during COVID because my kids were having panic attacks, and I had experienced panic attacks as a kid and as a young adult, and I thought, by writing about it, I could help them, and so I started writing, and in the process, I really didn't like what I had written at first. But the process of editing it and trying to make it more more beautiful and more funny, and that process to me was really, really fun. And I wanted to create something that would help other people. And so, um, when it got to the point where I felt like I had something like that, I decided um, I kind of wanted to offer it a chapter at a time, and Substack was a great way to do that. Um, and so I got onto Substack in September of last year. But I've also been writing about my division at work, and I'd been doing a lot of writing about my friends from high school, who a lot of them helped me through these periods where I was having panic attacks as a kid, um, just by showing up and being my friend. And um, so I've been writing their stories as well. But ultimately, I wrote this book called Stunt Mole, which was my nickname as a little kid because they could shame me into doing things that were stunts that probably kids shouldn't do. Initially, it was things that were, kind of brave but stupid, like whacking a wasp nest or, doing bad things to the neighbor's tomato plants and stuff like that. But eventually, they dared me to do some things that were, um, I guess, like sexually inappropriate things that I didn't really understand because I was a little kid. And uh, and then they spread it all around my school that I had done these things, even though as I remember it, I really didn't do anything, but it was just that I was present, and they were trying to get me to do some things that were, for a little kid, they shouldn't be doing. And um, so they spread that around my school, and it led to me being in a lot of fights. And my parents didn't really understand it. They didn't want to talk to me about it. And so I kind of lived with it. It was living with shame that made it very hard for me to make it through my childhood. And you write about the dark passenger, which would speak to you, and I had a dark passenger too, which was my shame, and I carried it with me into my adulthood until you kind of bury things sometimes, and these memories were buried, and then they came out when I was a young adult, when I was working with kids who were in trouble with the law, and we were doing sort of a fake group therapy session. We were on the river, and this was like Outward Bound type program. We were on the river, and they noticed that I had reacted. I'd seen somebody sort of getting bullied, but it was very, very minor. I got really, really mad, and and then it came out that I had had this experience. I mean, they just started prying into why I was so angry,
Mm.
and I had really forgotten about it. And so then I went back and I told my parents about it. My dad had been very adamant about not wanting to talk to me about what had happened when I was younger. And, I really felt like he didn't accept me as being who I really was because I had done this thing and he said it was disgusting. And, so I carried the shame for much of my young life. And so writing about it has been very helpful to me.
Hmm. Yeah, it's been so helpful for me too. And in the sense that it allowed me to process a lot of what happened through a different angle. Um, but at one point, I had conflated writing for therapy, um, and I thought like, well, I'm seeing a therapist, and writing is good, but I think at least at least for me, it's all I was focusing on was what happened, and I was going on podcasts and talking about it, and then for months it was the only thing like focusing on the trauma, and I wasn't addressing the root cause of things. Like I thought I was doing fine, and then earlier this year I snapped again. Um, I I had entered a bad case of depression and things like that, and then finally, like, I had so I went into treatment again for a couple weeks, and um, I came to a stark realization that I need to find a different way to like address the issues. Writing is good, um, and I don't know if you know, like, two things. Uh, the realization was that okay, writing is good, therapy is good, but uh, like I need a way to like break free and deprogram myself from the psychological abuse. I started EMDR, which has been really helpful to like process the trauma and quiet down the dark passenger. But um, I don't know if you noticed through if that my writings evolved a little bit. Like uh, when I first started writing on Substack, it was pretty dark. It was pretty grim. Uh, and after I started treatment, I try to evolve my writing into like, okay, let's talk about the heavy stuff, but let's throw in some humor too, because you know, being weird about or being so dark about what happened isn't good for me. And it's like I was looking at it from the reader's perspective of like that they might be getting a little depressed too. Yeah. But like and in doing so, like it helped quiet my dark passenger down a lot in terms of like uh you know I'm finally addressing stuff, but at the same time kind of making fun of what happened or bringing some sort of levity through humor in writing of what happened. And that's been that's been quite helpful in terms of like reprocessing what happened and moving forward. And um I ha- like, and then as you were talking, I was like wondering how you've moved forward, how through this trauma, like has writing helped you move forward, um, uh, or what have you seen as a positive impact of your writing as you share your experiences through of what you went through as a kid?
Yeah, yeah, great question. I just want to just mention that, I've been reading your work since I came onto Substack, and I always find your work to be funny. But you channel a lot of it when you write about your dog, or you write from the perspective of your dog. But I find that to be just extremely fun to read. And yeah, so I just want to mention that I think you may not realize that you are funny, but you've got a great sense of humor. I really enjoy it. And so to go back to your question, though, um, I think that there have been several things that have really helped me. I'm 62 now, so I've lived a long life with this kind of simmering uh, depression and shame under the surface. Um, and the way I've found to really keep it at bay is through meditative processes. So, I was a swimmer in high school, and the swimming is a very rhythmic, the breathing is rhythmic. And when I was a swimmer, I found that my life was always a lot smoother and a lot, I slept better, and I didn't worry as much. But I developed a bad back and I had to quit swimming.
Oh no.
Then, it was music, and uh, I played the viola, and I was learning some music by Bach, which is very uh, melodically complex and beautiful. And I would get lost in the music. Um, but, like you, Chris, I had a couple of episodes where I had sort of suicidal thoughts. I did not act on them, but, I was very close to the things that could have harmed me, and they made me take notice. One was an experience in Hawaii where I smoked marijuana that was really, really strong. And I was not somebody who was, accustomed to smoking marijuana. And so, this shame kind of came to the surface. And I was having a conversation with God, who was telling me to kill myself. It's the dark passenger, it wasn't really God. But um, yeah, so I had that experience, and my friend Kevin, who had invited me to Hawaii, was sitting next to me on this balcony while I was like just having this bad hallucination. So that was one experience, and I was like, okay, you need to start thinking about, why this is happening. And then the second time was in London when I had this complicated romantic experience that, looking back on it, a lot of people will say, well, what is the big deal here? But for me, it was like very, very intense. And it involved a guy and a girl, and or a young man and a woman. And, just my experience of that led to me wanting to kill myself. And I found myself in the London tube in despair. I ended up, instead of throwing myself in front of a train, I ended up taking the tube to where Overland London had their headquarters, and I just knocked on the door of the administrator. It was really late at night, and she let me into her apartment. She was an older person who was British, and she taught me how to meditate. And the meditation has really opened up a lot for me. I know it may not work for everybody, but I started to meditate very regularly at that point. And I realized my swimming and my music was also meditative. And but I made a point to meditate every day, and it really helped me turn off the voices, not the voices, but the voice that was a voice of shame that was telling me that I was not really worthy or a good person or you know uh, something that I had carried from my early childhood. I was able to sort of throw a blanket over it. Um, so I think it really opened up a lot of opportunity for me to become the person who I am. And I'm really thankful to Gwyneth Love, who was the administrator who taught me how to meditate. And then there were some other people who reinforced that um, over the next few years. It was by chance, but they would ask me about what was going on, and I would tell them, and they'd say, "Hey, these panic attacks. This really helped me. I always had panic attacks, and this is really what's helped me get through them." And so, I developed a skill set that I didn't have before that really helped me um, go on with my life.
Hmm. And that's like for me, that's something I'm like rediscovering. Um I used to be a runner. I used to run like 8 to 13 miles a day, and I used to be like wicked skinny. Oh, sorry, my Massachusetts came out on that one. Uh, um, yeah, I used to be like 150 pounds, and I used to play tennis, soccer, and um, I, I also have a love for music. I play guitar. Been playing guitar since I was 12. Um, and so uh, it I'm getting back into that whole rhythm of exercising. I started running again. I Right now I'm playing pickleball with my friends, and in the mornings I go and walk, and it like I don't meditate, but uh one of the things uh I do on my walks is like not only hang out with my dog, but um I guess it's some sort of meditation where like I do like 5 things I can see, like 4 things um 4 things I hear, like what so it's like a technique called 5 4 3 2 1. I forget what it all stands for, but it's like what can you smell, what can you see? It's a way to like ground yourself in nature, and that's been like super helpful uh for me, and like getting back into writing music and playing my guitar has been uh super helpful. I have a next to my desk I have my little shrine. I have my guitar and my dog. They're all in the same little corner. And um but one of the things I also forgot to add, like uh you suffered from panic attacks as a kid. I also struggled with panic attacks, but as a kid, but I didn't know what they were until later. Like I was having like sensory overload because of my autism, and I and I wrote this about, or well, I wrote about this in my book. Like there was a moment where I went through almost an entire school day of panic attack, and I had no idea what was happening, and I was trying to like remain in control. Um and one of my in my English class, a girl, one of my classmates, like touched my hand and was like, "Hey, like it's okay, come, I know what's happening, come back to this present moment," and that helped. And uh while I was writing the book, I got in contact with her, and I was like, "How do you know what I went through?" She's like, "Because I have a brother who's autistic. I could see right through you." Um and like it was a girl that I didn't interact very much, but after that moment, we became like good friends through most of high school. And it was, yeah, it was, but now looking back retrospectively, I don't know how I repressed all those panic attacks that I was having. Like internally, I was having so many panic attacks, and I had no idea what was going on. And the outside, I just looked fine, looked normal. Um, it, and now I know that there's a term for that. It's called masking. And in part of those conversations with my dark passenger, I was like, I would tell myself like, don't let them see that you're struggling. Be normal, and they're not gonna like you if you snap. Um, and how like how did you deal with, or how did you, or how do you deal with your panic attacks now, or do you have panic attacks now?
Yeah, I would say that it's been a long time since I've had a panic attack. Um, the last time that I think I came close to having a panic attack is when COVID hit, because for pediatricians who were essentially going into the hospital, we had no choice but to be exposed. And at the beginning of COVID, there was like a lot of mystery about how it spread and things like that. Like at the very beginning, they thought that it was on surfaces, and there was like panic buying, and all of the sanitizer had disappeared from the stores, and stuff, and they were
And
having
somehow
short
toilet paper.
toilet paper. Yeah, I don't know why, but the hospitals had a shortage of masks, and they had a shortage of things like that, the sanitizers and things. And um, I was leading a division at this point uh, of doctors, and some of our staff was older. I'm now 62. They were in their 60s, and I was really fearful that they were going to get COVID and die, and that my patients were going to get COVID and die, and that I was going to get COVID, and maybe I wouldn't die, but I would get really sick from it. And so I really started to meditate again as a very regular practice during COVID, which really helped me get through it. But this is when my kids started having panic attacks. And um, Chris, I've built my life around um, meditative activities and some degree of exercise as well. So, every morning I get up, I go to bed at the same time, or I try to, and I get up at the same time. Um, and I get up and I have like my morning routine, and you'll laugh, but I do Duolingo as part of it because I think it helps my brain. But I have an exercise routine. I walk the dog. Um, I now have a lot of arthritis, so I do my physical therapy, and I'm starting to learn Tai Chi, which is meditative, and it's good for people with arthritis. It's my sort of, because now that I just retired about a week ago, I've started for the past 2 weeks learning the Tai Chi, the different sequences, and but before it was, I was doing other martial arts. I had a running routine at one point. Um, Exercise, it releases a lot of the healthy neurotransmitters. I'm no psychiatrist or anything, but I've read books about this that suggest that exercise is really good for people with anxiety and depression, because it releases things in our brain that are good for you. And so I've built it into my daily routine. And then music, I don't play my viola much at all anymore, but I play guitar like you do, and I love to sing. And so I sing and play my guitar. That's very cathartic. And I also sing in an a cappella group called the Barber Gators, which I get to interact with my friends, and then singing harmonies, you can't really be worried about anything, so it shuts off the voices. I keep saying voices, but I don't really have voices, but I do have a voice, that likes to nag on me at times and remind me that, you know, it's more than humbling. It's like it cuts me down, to the lowest denominator. And I think it's an unhealthy voice to have there all the time. So having a routine that is healthy for my brain and for my body has been really key to me being able to pull through this.
I I'm finding that again too. It's like with I like implementing that running routine. I started like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Um, I've gotten up to 3 miles a day now, and like I lost so much. I lost like 30 pounds now, which is nice. Woo!
Wow.
But
Uh,
um, yeah, like with like mixing in the running, the pickleball, reintegrating music back into my life has been so soothing. And just even like I take Shadow out in the mornings, like at 6 a.m. to do her patrols, and it's just there's no one out there. There's the sun's out, the um, birds are chirping, and it's just that's been so helpful to quiet down the voice of the dark passenger. It's like you, it's I struggle with that voice of like cutting me down. It's that so when you say voices, I know what you mean. Like I got you, like uh and then like you, I often have to clarify that it's not like voices because I don't want to sound crazy. It's um because people will start thinking he's hearing voices. What's going on? It's like um so like reintegrating all these things has been so instrumental in quieting uh that voice of negativity that runs through my head. And um recently I I wondered what part of it now is still an echo of the psychological abuse that I went through of and so what, like, I guess another way to frame it is like where's that delineation of her voice uh that sounds like my own versus the dark passenger. And I don't want to dwell on that question much longer because I just want to move forward. Uh, and like it doesn't matter whose voice it is. Um, it's not helpful. Uh, and how do I start living my best life now? Um, so that's something I'm kind of exploring now. It's like, do you have something like that like or I should say, how are, how do you find yourself trying to move forward and through those kinds of negative talks that you have inside yourself, outside of doing your exercise routine and music and things? Like, are you more mindful of that?
you mentioned your friend in school who put her hand on your, she touched you and said, I know what's going on. Think about what's going on now. And um, I I've found very helpful the meditation because it grounds you in the present, and really tries to no tries the process gets you to focus on the here and now and not what happened in the past. And so, I really feel like the stuff that happened when I was a kid it's there, but it's so buried by what's happening in my life now. I'm married to Marcy, who's just this amazing person, and we are getting ready to move to another town where she's going to be she is the medical director of this camp. And um, so what's happening right now is very compelling. And so, for me to think about things that happened before, I'll just say that the meditation keeps me from thinking backwards. And in our adult lives, the things happen that, at least for me as a pediatrician, um, you set yourself up for heartache in the field of oncology. And the types of things that you carry are, did you make a mistake?
Mm.
Did you say something that was hurtful to somebody? And these are um, more recent, I don't know, wounds that I that aren't childhood wounds, that they bring out the shame. But you can't be an effective oncologist and have the shame running the show, essentially, because you wouldn't survive. Because every day you're having to work with kids who are extremely vulnerable, and you need to be able to show up and make good decisions and things like that. And so I really think meditation has been the key. And then having these healthy practices that are meditative, like what you're sounds like you're building your life around these things too. Walking your dog, walking. You had written about the path of grace, a walk that you did, which had certain things that you needed to remind yourself of. That kind of practice has really helped me through a 30-year career as a physician and a pediatrician. And I don't think I could have done it without it, honestly.
Hmm. Yeah, as you were talking, like I was gonna follow up with that Grace Trail only because it's fresh in my mind that they just did a write up on me uh, through that reflection of the Grace Trail and stuff, and um, so yeah, for the viewers, there's a trail here in nearby in Plymouth called the Grace Trail that there are different questions uh, within the word grace, like what are you grateful for? Gratitude is great, the G in grace. And what do I need to release? That's the R. What do I need to accept? And what do I need to embrace? And uh, one of the things I'm exploring now, as I walk with Shadow, or as and that's where I do my runs now. It's at the Grace Trail, and it's only because I know that's a little over 3 miles. Yeah, and so one of the things I keep thinking about is like, okay, I can when I start shifting into that like, oh, why did this happen to me, or and dwelling on those years of abuse. It's like, okay, uh, I need to accept that this happened, uh, and it happened, and I need to embrace that fact that it happened, and dwelling on it isn't going to change what happened. It's um, and so I just kind of have to learn from it and release it, and just work through that trauma and just be grateful for the fact that I had a sister who came and got me. I'm here now. Uh, I I'm not in that same space anymore. I I'm grateful that Katie entered my life, because when I had just given up on everything, she came and uh, breathed light back into me, and now I'm starting to see another girl, and it's I'm starting to live my best life. I'm losing weight. I'm moving. Like it's so those kinds of things have been, exploring those questions, and uh, you may call it meditation. I may call it mindfulness, and essentially they're the same thing. It's just walking that path day in and day out, or running that path these days has been so integral in keeping me grounded and more forward thinking of like, all right, where do I want to go? And where I want to go isn't necessarily in the space where I've been staying at, which what I mean by that is I've been staying in this negative space for so long now that I don't want to be here anymore. I want to uh, I want to be better. I want to uh, be a better version of myself than I had been over the last few years, and I'm not gonna do that by moping, you know. And it's um, a way I put it the other day is it's how my wife and her mom win is if I stay in that space, and I don't want them to win.
Hmm.
So that's what's been keeping me grounded, and you know, that's my act of revenge. They tried to
Uh,
keep me down. They try to keep me down, and you know, the way I get back at them is by being better than their expectations.
you in your book, you wrote that you forgave your wife, and you didn't do it because she deserved it, but you did it because you deserved it. And I really thought that was really very, very good. I love that. I mean, so many things you say in that book are like just very, very hold a lot of truth. Um, but this act of forgiving people who have um, done us some sort of harm, or um, it is very liberating to forgive and forgive and forget. My uncle called it burying the hatchet. And I mentioned my uncle because my mom didn't bury the hatchet. She always carried a lot of, she remembered everything. But she would always mention my Uncle Ray. He would bury the hatchet. And he lived to his late 80s, was a very, very happy, kind person. And I always enjoyed being around him. But I think he didn't think back about things that had happened in the past. And interestingly, in my book, I portray one of the bullies as the devil. I had fun doing that, and the other bullies, I just portray them as who they were. But in my I've done these companion interviews, and I interviewed one of my friends, Mark Carroll, and the bulliest I changed their name in my book, so to because I didn't want anybody to get blowback for what I wrote, so I changed their name. So he didn't know who they were, and I told him who they were, and he still lives near them, and he's like, well, these guys are good guys. He's like, would you like to talk to them? And I think about it, and I wonder what that would be like. Um, and I do want to forgive them and just let it be, bygones be bygones. Living I'm living a good life now, and I know they are too. And um, but anyway, going back to the point that you were making about being a better person, you know, I, I think one of the key things is that we have to know that we're enough. And I really think, the message that Ava was giving to you, Katie was her real name, was that you are enough. And I read your writing, you're really trying to help other people go through this too. Um, um, I think by wanting to help other people, it's a way that we heal. And the process of helping other people is a healing process. Um, I see it in your writing. Your compassion for other people is just so deep, and I really appreciate it. Um, when I saw your interview with your mom, I saw this. I was like, what the heck is this Substack Live? And you were doing a Substack with your mom, and it was so real, and it was so um, you know beautiful to hear this conversation that you had with your mom. Um, my mom is deceased, but my mom and dad and I had a conversation very similar back. It's like in, gosh, it was 1988 or 1989. We had a conversation about what was going on with me. And I think by sharing these things, Chris, you're helping other people heal. But I gotta think also it's part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think you're enough. And the people around you are telling you that. Um, that's what I see in your writing about Ava. She loved you, and she just tried to get you to see yourself for the beauty in yourself.
Yeah, it's um this is one of the notes that she left me, or cards that she left me. I don't know if it comes up backwards on the
No, it
screen.
comes. We can read it, and it's
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
And she and then she this is the way she lives in my everyday life now. This is her voice coming through every day. It's like, thank you for being a light in my life. And I this was my favorite one, only because we both have the same sense of humor. Uh, or um, and so it's I keep them right next to my desk because this is where while I'm working, sometimes I'll get one of these negative thoughts of like, oh, well, maybe I'm not enough, and I'll I like look at her. I have a stack. This is just a small fraction of the things that she left me, and it's like it's the way I hear her talk to me every day, which is nice. Um, Wow, I made it through without tearing up a little bit. Anyway, um, I'm lucky I had her. I think. I I often, I went through a grief. I did a grief counseling thing at the local church. It just ended not that long ago, and they went through the anger part. They did a thing on anger of feeling angry that the person died, or feeling angry at the person for them dying, and or angry at themselves. Um, I got to thinking of myself like, oh, like I don't know if I've ever felt angry. It's not something I thought about anger, uh, and the conclusion I came to is I'm not angry at Katie dying because she didn't want to. I know she didn't want to. She fought for 3 weeks in the ventilator. It's I not angry at her family for making the decision that they made. It's not a decision any family wants to make for anybody, uh, especially for their kid. You know, she was 41, but she's still their kid. You know, um, I am, however, still very angry that such a terrible thing happened to a group of good people, because her and her family were and are this phenomenal bunch of humans. They're so empathetic, so loving, so um I messed up a lot with Katie, and you know I they like they still care for me, even though I was not the best sometimes. And um that just speaks to the kind of people that they are. And I'm just so angry that it happened to them. Why can't terrible things happen to bad people is is a thing that I always come back to. But I guess it is what it is. Anyway, at the risk of rambling too much, um, like how do you how did you deal with uh that kind of being in that position with being in being an oncologist, and making those kind or watching people make those kinds of tough calls for their kids?
Yeah, first of all, just I want to say how, like, that part of your story to me is so sad, and I feel like people who are young like that should not have to die. I think it's a real it goes against the fabric of the universe for that to happen. With that said, being a pediatric oncologist, I know that young people get sick, and and too many of them die from their illness. And so, how do you process something like that, and um, go to work the next day and things like that? The thing that really helped me with this is my dad was an oncologist, and so I watched him through a period of time when most people were not cured of their cancer. I watched him go to work, and he was really, really tireless kind of physician who, you know, you he was a really good person and very hardworking, and so I knew somebody could do it. I just didn't know I could do it, and I think a lot of my young adulthood was like grappling with, can I really do something like this? Um, but a couple things that I'll say. One is that by the time a kid has gotten to the point where parents might consider, withdrawing life support, they've often suffered in ways that the parents really understand that they're not going to be cured, and that this will end the suffering, which in a lot of ways it's like it's the most loving act that you can do. Um, it's when it's sudden, when a kid dies suddenly, and there's still a lot of hope that they're going to survive, that I think the shock is the most, the wound is the most difficult for parents to deal with, and for the oncologist. It's like, okay, what could I have done that would have made this not happen? Um, and I think living with guilt and shame is very hard, and you have to develop an ability to recognize it, and not ignore it, but properly organize it, I guess. Um, and again, I think meditation and developing habits that allow me to put things, organize things that way has been helpful.
Hmm.
Of course, I don't smoke marijuana. As an adult, I learned my lesson as a young adult that it makes me really not process things well. I think alcohol also is not very good for me. It's a depressant. So I I wouldn't say that I never drink alcohol, but I really kind of monitor myself and try not to make it something that is part of me self-medicating, or and then the other thing is, with the team of oncologists, our group focuses on self-care. We have a psychologist on our team who um, teaches practices of self-care. And I can also tell you that psychotherapy has helped me in my adult life when I started really feeling depressed. Um, I've also tried antidepressants, but they make me feel strange. And so I've not taken antidepressants for most of my adult life. But when I start feeling depression, I do get psychotherapy. And also when I'm really anxious, I've found that talking to a therapist has been very helpful to me. So these are all things that have really helped me to be um, a pediatric oncologist. I think that they could be helpful to other people too. Um,
I'm a big fan of therapy. I think I wish more people had access to it. Uh, most like it's just become so expensive, and we have an affordability issue these days on with everything that you know with our economic situation now, especially. It's people are going to have to choose between seeking care and um, paying the bills or buying gas, and um, because I found that some people, some therapists don't even take insurance or don't want to deal with taking insurance, and it's $150 a pop, and it's it's one of the things I'm trying to address with my book sales of like how do I um, provide funds so that people can access mental health, because without it I'd be a mess, and um, I um, I want more people to stay, and
yeah.
therapy is one way to get people to stay.
No, I saw that you were doing that, and as soon as I saw that, I became a paid subscriber to your Substack. I think that's really admirable. Um, and uh, yeah, our system is not really, it's not really a great system. It's not a system. It's really set up. It's a very much a for-profit entity. Um,
Wait, and that's the thing that makes me so angry about the US. It's when did we decide that, well, first of all, thanks for being a paid subscriber. And then like when did we decide as a nation that health was going to be a for-profit institution? Now it's not soybeans, is it? Like it's our health. It's it's the thing that keeps us from being alive or dead is our health, and so I don't know, it's not something we're going to fix, but why did it become such a for-profit institution?
well, all of the all of the solutions that are um, more egalitarian in terms of healthcare are the American public, at least a subsegment of them rise up and they say no, and they call it communism. But a lot of the best places to live in the world have some form of socialized medicine to provide, just the basics of what people need. And the VA has a system of care that is, it's not perfect by any means, but it does provide for vets in this country. And I think, if you took it away, people would be really upset about it, and Medicare as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when Obama took Romney's plan, which was essentially a conservative plan to cover healthcare uh, for more Americans, subsidized but through private insurance companies. People showed up at the town halls with their weapons, and they said, "No, we don't want this," and yet they still passed it. But that system is being torn down, and that system is not even, it's still a for-profit system. It's not the kind of European socialized medicine that takes the insurance companies out of the middle of it. And um, but that kind of thing is labeled communism, even though it's not communism. It's labeled as communism, and God, we don't want communism in the United States. So uh, yeah, so we need better systems of care. But if you have access to psychotherapy, I think it is very useful. And I think for some people, antidepressants are also really important. And um, I know a lot of people that I love use antidepressants, and they're really important to uh, their ability to function and to live their best lives.
Yeah, I'm on them. Whoa. Final mixture, or one that actually works, that doesn't make me feel weird. Um, so um, it's all about the experimentation. But with I hope that one day wean myself out of them through a mixture of consistent therapy, and exercise and and music, so that it's I don't want to be medicated all for the rest of my life. It's but I don't want to struggle with depression either. So
Yeah.
or through its full effects. So how can I manage it more effectively without meds down the line? So anyway, um, yeah, such is life.
Hey, we promised we were going to show off our dogs.
Oh, we did do that. We,
I've got Indy right here. She's been kind of right next to me. She's
oh,
She's quite the smelly beast.
That's the Grand Heifer.
The Grand Heifer, yeah.
I got my old lady right here. She's taking a nap. Oh, now
Oh,
she's awake. Hey, say hi to everybody, Shadow.
yeah,
Yeah, she's like,
Shadow's beautiful.
yeah. Thanks. Yeah, and then this is my shrine part 2, my little guitar. So,
Awesome.
um, you said something about a collaboration with the Grand Heifer.
Well, I was thinking that it might be good to add poetry to the Sentinel. You know, it could be something like the mutterings of the Grand Heifer, pooch poetry, something like that.
Oh,
And
that
then
would be
invite
fun.
people to write hound haikus and things like that.
That is a good
I know,
idea.
I know you had this throwdown that you thought that our dogs needed to provide some sort of literary output like Shadow does. So um, yeah, I might have Indy write a haiku uh,
Okay, let me write this
for
down
you.
because I like this idea. I like this idea a lot. Literary haikus
Yeah, hound
for dog.
haikus.
Huh.
And from the mutterings, get the little dad jokes in there too.
Oh, I love the dad jokes. I had 2 today that I think were perfect. Um, I was eating. I sent the new lady a picture of my breakfast. I was eating a cantaloupe, and um, well, it was to the group chat that we have, and I was just remarking how uh Katie used to laugh at me the way I would eat cantaloupe because I would just cut it in half and then just eat it out of the thing, but she would cut it up for me, and the response I got from the new lady was like, "A, how come you didn't wake me up? And B, you've got hands, you could cut it up yourself. So don't be lazy." Uh, and I was like, uh, first of all, I didn't wake you up because I didn't want to wake up grumpy, so I thought I'd let you sleep in. So I thought that was good. And
Uh,
then I said, for your other point, uh, this is where we can't elope.
uh,
I I got an eye roll emoji back. That was fun.
uh,
I thought that was pretty good.
it
I
is
thought,
pretty good.
yeah,
It is pretty good. Yeah, it's yeah, it's not as good as the crowbar.
that is uh that is a good one.
Yeah,
The joke is for everyone listening that I was really glad that the crowbar was invented because that way crows wouldn't have to drink at home. Yeah.
yeah,
Anyway, I think we got to land the plane because I gotta meet up with my crew to cream them at pickleball this morning.
yeah. I think all our viewers are throwing up right now.
I
Okay.
know, with my terrible dad jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
No, they're good.
um,
All right. Yeah, very nice talking to you, Chris. I really have looked forward to meeting you, and really have enjoyed reading your work, and appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
yeah, let's do it again. Like, let's make this a kind of a reoccurring thing. Not like with great frequency, but let's make it a reoccurring thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right, and I'll keep in touch on the dog literary poetry thing. I like that idea a lot.
All right. I'll have Indy work on a haiku for you today.
Okay. All right. Well, take it easy, and it's nice to meet you finally.
Adios, mi amigo.
Adiós, te portas bien.
I know.
Bye.